Situation facing small business in Canada has been incredibly challenging, and for us as a business association, we've been challenged right as well. But we've been doing, I think, a reasonably good job of serving small and medium-sized companies, our members, right across Canada. The first big thing that we're doing is advocating for small firms. So that means advocating with the federal and provincial governments, including some municipalities, to try to provide small business relief programs, to advocate for our members through the reopening to ensure that they do have the ability to safely reopen their businesses, and all sorts of issues from HR to other matters. Those have been top of our agenda. So CFIB has played a really big role in helping to deliver the wage subsidy, the CEWS program as it's known. We've also been a big force behind the continued expansion of the CEBA loan program, the Canada Emergency Business Account. And we've also been working really hard to try to fix a poor program, which is to support commercial rent, the CECRA program. So those are the efforts that we've been making on the advocacy side. On the other big service we've provided small businesses across Canada is direct one-on-one business counseling. Now, we always do this at CFIB. We typically take 50 to 100 calls a week, but that has risen in many weeks to 1,000 calls from business owners. Most of them, of course, CFIB members, but many of them non-members to CFIB. And these are companies that we're contacting primarily by telephone and answering their questions. Most of the questions these days have been on some of the government support programs, because there's a confusing mess of rules that often need to be changed, and business owners have not been able to figure them out to save their lives. So we've been working really hard to provide good quality information. CFIB has provided a few other services to our members. We've created a Back to Business Kit to help guide small firms through their reopening phase. We've created a Facebook page called PPEs for SMEs. This is to help connect those small companies that are starting to create personal protective equipment with those companies that need to buy personal protective equipment. And finally, CFIB is now part of an initiative, together with a few other business associations, that has created the Post Promise. And this is a commitment that small businesses make, that they can then advertise to their consumers of the steps that they have taken to allow them to safely reopen. What we're hoping is, of course, it'll give consumers confidence to return to small companies. So those are 5 things that CFIB has been doing throughout the pandemic. Yeah, look, there are more and more businesses being allowed to open every week. Being allowed to open is, of course, step 1. We've gone from about 20% of our members that were open during the tightest part of the pandemic to now just over 50% of small firms that are fully open. We've created a Back to Business Kit to give small firms guidance of what they need to do. It includes posters. It includes guidance for HR issues, like how do you recall your workers back. We're also advocating for changes to some of the government support programs. The CERB program, for example, that provides $2,000 a month in benefits to individuals that have lost their jobs, is serving in some cases to be a disincentive to get back to work. So we are advocating for some changes to that program, most notably to allow a business owner to recall their worker, and then the CERB benefits would otherwise end unless they have a pressing reason to stay away from work. So we've been working on all of that to make sure that we can, in an orderly way, allow workers to come back to the small businesses with whom they were previously employed and continue to serve clients in new ways.
What are some things?
Yeah, look, there's been a host of programs that have been created by government, some of them very good ones that need further tweaking. Others are really a big mess. And as I mentioned earlier, the biggest and probably most well-received program has been the wage subsidy. It allows businesses that have seen a 30% reduction in their gross revenues to get a 75% wage subsidy of their workers' wages up to $847 a month per worker. That is a really good program. It's helped a ton of businesses stay around. We've estimated that somewhere between 50% and 2/3 of small firms will end up using the wage subsidy. And we've been advocating for further expansions of that program as we go. And we're pleased to report that the government has announced that the program will be extended for June, July, and August. We're pushing hard to make sure that the rules for July and August will allow more small businesses to participate. The second big program that has been well received by many small businesses is the CFIB loan program, the Canada Emergency Business Account. This provides a $40,000 loan to small business. It's interest-free and delivered through their bank, and up to $10,000 or 25% of that loan is forgivable. That's really important because many businesses have told us that their fixed costs have not gone away, and they of course have no or little revenue from which to pay that. So the $10,000 forgivable portion serves as a bit of a grant, and that has helped a lot of small firms in the process. Unfortunately, it too has struggled because there are many businesses that are excluded from the program. At first, there was a tight payroll requirement of $50,000 to $1 million. After some lobbying, the federal government expanded that to $20,000 to $1.5 million. But many businesses that pay themselves with dividends or that pay contract workers, don't have a business bank account, or are brand new firms have been excluded from the program. After weeks and weeks of lobbying, the government finally announced that they would be expanding the program to allow those groups to participate as well with certain conditions. And the first big stage of that expansion is expected in the next couple of days, with a further expansion of those newer businesses and those without a business bank account expected in the weeks ahead. The final program that really isn't working very well is the rent support program, CCRA as it's known. This program provides a potential 75% rent reduction to small firms for April, May, and June. A really good program on the surface. Unfortunately, for the small business that is affected, they are entirely dependent on their landlord in order to participate. So the small firm can't get the subsidy directly. They have to depend on their landlord to apply to use the program. And if the landlord chooses not to, there's nothing they can do. So we've been actively lobbying the federal government, provincial governments as well, that cost share this, to allow small firms to actually get the subsidy directly and allow them to then sort out the business with their landlord. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. We continue to push really hard on that. First of all, I think it's important that business owners know that this isn't their fault. There are many that are taking this really hard, seeing their live streams just crumble in their hands. And that's really sad. We've talked to at least a half dozen business owners who have contemplated suicide. That's how dark this has become. I think it's important to know that even with all the best business planning that a business owner can do, very few were fully prepared to address the size and scope of the virtual shutdown of the economy that was necessitated by COVID-19. So recognizing that this isn't their fault is a big part of that, and that I do worry deeply about the mental health impact that this is having on small business owners, because they have such a huge responsibility to their own families, to their workers, and of course to the communities that they serve. Second is, as best you can, try to persevere. Try to keep the business intact until we see brighter days ahead. And many of them are doing just that. Make sure that you educate yourself on all of the government support programs that are out there. And I do know that many of them need fixing, because there are lots of businesses that unfortunately are slipping through the cracks of the programs. But please feel free, any business owner can lean on CFIB at this time. Our special COVID website is cfib.ca/COVID-19. We're trying to answer all the questions that business owners have as quickly as we can. Second, call our business helplines. We have now a staff of, when we needed, up to 100 people to take calls from business owners to answer the questions, to provide them with support through that process. You don't have to be a CFIB member to participate. That number is 1-888-234-2232. Business owners can call us and we'll do our very best to try to help them through the pandemic. Also, talking to other business owners can be a really helpful thing during this process, recognizing that you're just not alone. So those are a few of the things off the hop that small businesses can do to try to address the pandemic as we move from the emergency to the recovery phase of COVID-19.
Awesome. And any final thoughts you would like to share with our audience?
The one thing I want to make sure that all consumers know is how rough a time small business owners have had over the last number of months. They really need your support. So please, I know during the shutdown, many consumers were forced to buy every one of their needs at Costco or Walmart or the big box stores that sell groceries. But now is the time to support the local businesses in your backyard. We are trying as best we can to remind Canadians that if they don't support these small companies that have been there to support them over the years, that they just won't exist. So CFIB is soon to pilot a major buy local, buy small initiative to try to encourage as many Canadians to support small companies as possible.
Thanks, Dan, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.